What's up, everyone? I'm your host, Jenny.
And I'm your co-host, Jessie. You're listening to Milkshakes and Ghosts.
This is a podcast where we discuss ghostly encounters and hauntings while drinking milkshakes, of course. Jessie's my daughter.
And Jenny is my mom. You guys will not hear me calling her by name out of respect for my mom.
Darn tootin', you better call me mom, because if I hear you call me Jenny, that's a time off for you.
I'm sorry.
Now, I'm an open-minded skeptic when it comes to the paranormal. I do believe everything has a logical explanation, but I still have room in my mind to be proven wrong. However, I am still waiting for the day when someone can make a solid case where there's no rational explanation. What about you, Jessie? What's your take on this?
Well, I've seen many YouTube videos and, TikTok shorts about, ghost paranormal stuff. So I have seen stuff that I have thought to be real and a lot more stuff that I have thought to be wrong.
I guess I'm more of a skeptic than you are, though, because I am very stubborn when it comes to things being told that they're real. I've seen a lot of things that can't be explained, but I still haven't been totally convinced. Hopefully, during this journey with the two of us podcasting and investigations that we'll be covering, hopefully my mind can be swayed and changed.
Sorry about that. I was just slurping on my milkshake.
Yeah, sorry for those of you listening. If you hear Jessie and I slurping our milkshakes in the microphone, we're not trying to. We're just thirsty. And these milkshakes are really good. My milkshake, it's really delicious today. I'm drinking a chocolate strawberry milkshake. I made it with real strawberries and chocolate chips. Of course, I made it because I make the best milkshakes. What about you, Jessie? What type of milkshake are you drinking today?
Okay, first of all, I previously think my milkshake is better.
Excuse me.
Excuse you? Okay, I made my milkshake out of peanut butter with cookie dough ice cream, and I put some chocolate in it.
That sounds really good. All right, so I think we're going to have to trade milkshakes eventually throughout this podcast so I can taste yours.
No.
Not fair, not fair. All right, so we have two different ghost stories today. Both Jessie and I did a lot of research, and we researched separately, so we have no idea what ghost stories we're telling. I don't know what she's going to say, and she doesn't know what I'm going to say. Do you want to go first, Jessie?
Yeah, sure. While researching, I came across a well-known ghost show called Ghost Adventures on the Travel Channel, and I liked their investigation of Poveglia Island.
Now, Jessie, is that in Italy?
Yes, Venice, Italy. So, let me start off by explaining the history of Poveglia Island. In the South Lagoon between Venice and Lido sits the small Italian island of Poveglia that for centuries has been a refuge, stronghold, place of exile, and a dumping ground for the diseased, dying, and deceased. In 421, Poveglia welcomed its first inhabitants, men, women, and children who fled the barbaric invaders that had raged the mainland. Relatively small size made the island defendable and not worth the trouble of invading armies. For centuries, this small community lived in peace and avoided laws and taxes of the mainland.
Oh, wow. Okay, so Poveglia Island, that sounds like a paradise. A small island with not a lot of people. That's my dream. And everyone knows everyone. And of course, cost of living is cheaper. I want to move there. I mean, is that even possible, I wonder?
Actually, it's not what you think. Poveglia Island did not start off as a paradise. Population eventually dwindled, and by the 14th century, the island was once again abandoned. In 1348, the bubonic plague arrived in Venice and Poveglia. Poveglia Island soon became a quarantine colony. The plague killed 1 out of 3 Europeans. Venice feared the plague would spread. They began to exile many of its symptom-bearing citizens there.
See, I didn't know all of this stuff. I have heard of Poveglia Island before, but I didn't realize that basically this was a death sentence.
That's exactly what it is. At the island's center, the dead and those too sick to protest were burned on giant spheres. This included the tens of thousands of Venice citizens dying on the mainland.
Wow, that sounds absolutely horrific. You know, this story, it's bringing up not the greatest memories right now, Jesse. You know, in times of COVID and when the world went into quarantine.
Yeah, those were really scary times. Hopefully we never have to relive it like Poveglia Island, because the bubonic plague wasn't the only thing to sweep there.
I thought the worst was over, Jesse.
The worst has yet to come. In 1630, the Black Death swept through the city. I'm not gonna bore you with more history about the Black Death. The name of the deadly plague is enough. I just have to talk about the history so you can understand why it's deemed haunted.
I'm intrigued now. Okay, I haven't heard much about Poveglia Island. I do know very little, so I'm very interested in everything you have to say about this right now.
Here's a fun fact. Napoleon's military campaigns relied on the island's ghostly legends to protect stores of gunpowder and weapons.
You know, that's a smart move on Napoleon's end. Tell everyone something is haunted so they don't steal your gunpowders and weapon. I think I would do the same thing if I was in his shoes.
Anyway, let's fast forward to the late 1800s. Mental illness was on the rise, and back then they didn't really understand or know how to treat mental illness. So, an asylum was made on Poveglia Island to house those who were mentally ill. The asylum was poorly constructed and was used as a place of exile rather than rehabilitation. There are rumors that in the 1930s, a doctor performed strange experiments on the patients here. Eventually, the doctor went mad and threw himself from the asylum's tall bell tower. Though the bell tower was removed decades ago, locals still claim to hear its chimes echo from the lonely island.
The thought of a chime of a non-existing bell going off, that's more scarier than seeing a ghost itself.
To me, I think a ghost is more scary than a bell. I mean, can't a bell be like a logical explanation?
Perhaps, but I mean, if there's nothing around and you're telling me that bell tower is gone and literally that place is in ruins and then you're hearing a chime, that would make me question what is real and what is not. I'd have to experience that firsthand.
Well, maybe it could be a whale and they're mistaking it for a bell tower.
A wind chime? Now, we're gonna have to listen to whale sounds after this, Jesse.
By the mid-20th century, the asylum was converted into a geriatric center.
Poor seniors. That would definitely send me to an early grave if I was in that situation.
You'll be happy to know that the geriatric place closed down in 1975.
Thank goodness, those poor seniors.
Today, the entire island is abandoned. Locals and tourists are prohibited from visiting, and fishermen steer clear of the cursed place. In recent years, Italian construction crews attempted to restore the former hospital building, but abruptly stopped without explanation, leaving locals to speculate that they were driven away by the island's dark forces.
Very, very cool story you picked, Jesse. A haunted, abandoned, creepy island. That is absolutely horrifying.
When it comes to this island, it's a little hard to tell what is true and what is made up. I just summarized the history of it. There wasn't enough time to get really in deep how much death has stained Poveglia. There are rumors of people saying that the island is made up of 50% human ash.
Do you know how people started that rumor?
With all the victims of the plague, the hospital didn't know how to get rid of the bodies, so they decided to burn them. While this does sound reasonable, researchers shared a different story. That exact number differs, but it seems there were about 100,000 victims, and rather than being burned, they were left in so-called plague pits. It's tough to say which version of the story might be creepier.
Regardless if it's true, it sounds like thousands of individuals unfortunately lost their lives.
Another rumor is that the asylum's director went crazy and jumped off the clock tower, but according to the legend, it wasn't the jump that caused his death. It was a mysterious fog. The doctor was known for being a bit mad, and for doing experiments on patients, including performing several lobotomies. However, even though you might frequently encounter this story in different narratives about Poveglia, it actually started in US television series like Ghostbusters. There is no concrete evidence to support the existence of such a doctor on the island or any record of a suicide attempt.
Rumors and speculations always make a great ghost story.
Speaking of ghosts, another legend of the island states that patrons of the psychiatric hospital would often see the ghost of the plague and feel even more tortured by these visions. These stories, unfortunately, cannot be fully confirmed, so it remains yet another mystery.
Do you know what became of Poveglia Island?
Not much is left of Poveglia Island. Today, only the bell tower remains. Thankfully, this ancient structure was saved due to its useful function as a lighthouse.
Is it still abandoned, Jesse?
Yes, it is.
So no one can visit?
The island is state-owned. You have the option of seeking special permission. Typically, such permission is granted for purposes like film crew, photography projects, or research. It's worth pointing out that all of the remaining structures have been left in rubble and aren't very safe to explore. Most of the stairs and ceilings have collapsed and vegetation has taken over.
Thank you so much, Jesse, for that very spooky and interesting story. I say we try to get permission and you and I go visit that island to see if we can find some ghosts. What do you think?
No.
Why not?
I don't want to see any ghosts. I don't want to bring anything home.
Well, my story takes place in St. Augustine, Florida. Today, I will be talking about the Phantom Ladies of Flagler College. Jesse, have you heard this story before?
No, I have not, but I have heard about St. Augustine.
What? Okay, what are you wearing? I literally just turned around from the computer.
I was waiting for you to notice. I put on the glasses.
All right, so I know that you guys can't see because we're not visual, but I was literally staring at the computer and I turned around to look at Jessie and she has these, I want to say, what are they, Minecraft glasses?
They're not Minecraft glasses. They're I don't really know how to explain them, but they're pink.
I was not expecting that. All right.
Not Minecraft.
There probably isn't a college or boarding school in existence that doesn't have a ghost story involving a student or teacher who passed away in some bizarre accident. Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida is no exception, but most of its spooks were around long before the liberal arts school was founded in 1968. In fact, its three spectral ladies are all from the 1890s. Way before the building was a college, it was one of the grandest hotels in America. Often referred to as the man who founded Florida, self-made millionaire and railroad magnate, Henry Morrison Flagler fell in love with the ancient city of St. Augustine and decided to turn it into a vacationer's paradise. He opened his Ponce de Leon Hotel January 10th, 1888. The first ghost that resides at this location is called the Blue Lady. The apparition of a lovely young woman has been seen a number of times through the years and on few occasions conversed with the living.
So she can speak to the living?
Well, if rumors are true, yes, she can. Though there are questions as to her identity, old-timers who once worked in the hotel dining room recalled hearing about a lady with a pale blue lace dress. The lady always sat at a particular table near the window and requested tea and cakes. Gossipy guests whispered that the woman would never order a full meal.
Sounds like a classy lady. Know what? Because of that, I'm gonna need my glasses again.
All right. You stay with your classy self, Jessie. Another story told by Florida historian Robert R. Jones is that the lady in blue was the mistress of Clifton Ward, a friend of Henry Flagler's. Although married, Ward became smitten with a dark-haired beauty staying alone at the hotel. The lady in blue soon became pregnant. Clifton Ward was also married at the time and asked his wife for a divorce. Mrs. Ward refused, and that afternoon, he joined his sweetheart for tea and cakes at her favorite table. He then informed her there would be no marriage. With tears filling her brilliant blue eyes, the lady in blue bolted from the room and ran upstairs. When she reached the top, the heel of her shoe caught on the carpet and she tumbled to her death. Soon after, the young woman's untimely demise, guests and employees alike spoke of encounters with a lady wearing a blue dress in the dining room. For years after, the woman in blue's favorite table contained a card that read, "Reserved for Our Lady in Blue and her guests." There are still a lot of sporadic sightings of the Blue Lady at Flagler College, and those of a more sensitive nature have heard what sounds like muffled sobs. It is presumed she is weeping for the loss of her lover and unborn child. She is most often encountered near her favorite spot in the dining room or on the stairs.
That's so sad.
The next apparition seen at Flagler College is the Lady in Black. The Lady in Black stalks the west wing of Flagler College. There is a speculation as to her origin, but the most repeated explanation is that she, like the Blue Lady, was the mistress of a married man. This married man brought both his wife and his mistress, which is the Lady in Black, to the Ponce de Leon. He shared a suite with his family in the East Wing and had the Lady in Black on the opposite side of the hotel. She was registered as a married woman and wore a wedding band to avoid any gossip or rumors.
That's a whole lot of drama. The nerve of that guy.
Don't you ever date a guy like that, Jessie. Now, the story gets worse. The Lady in Black discovered she was pregnant. At this current time, her pregnant stomach was beginning to show. To avoid suspicion from people, she started saying how she received word her husband had died. She confined herself to her room, even taking her meals there. It wasn't until the sun began to set that the Lady in Black left the confines of her chamber to stroll around the grounds as darkness enveloped the ancient city. In Victorian times, this was considered acceptable behavior for a recently widowed woman. At other times, she climbed the stairs to the upper balcony of the West Observation Tower, where she was seen pacing back and forth. The Lady in Black is seldom seen today, but in the past, there were sporadic accounts of a woman in black stalking the corridors in the West Wing of the hotel. Others spotted her wandering the grounds on mild winter evenings. So Jessie, who do you think is creepier, the Lady in Blue or the Lady in Black?
Definitely the Lady in Black. I think her story's creepier in my opinion.
Well, I think our minds play tricks on us due to the fact that almost every horror movie out there, there's some kind of lady in black, in a black veil, in a black dress. Everything scary put on television is of some kind of black clothing or white. There's so many horror stories, but I feel the same as you, the Lady in Black would be scarier. It just kind of reminds me of the movie The Nun for some reason.
Yeah, it does remind me of the cover, even though I haven't seen the movie. I've just seen the cover. It's really creepy.
So the final and most active phantom female of Flagler College is the White Lady. But unlike her spectral sisters, her identity is not in question. Her actions establish beyond doubt that she is Henry Flagler's second wife, Alice, who was allegedly driven mad by supernatural forces summoned through a Ouija board. Flagler's first wife, Mary, died of tuberculosis in 1881. During her lengthy illness, Alice Shrudds, a commonly woman in her mid-30s, was one of Mrs. Flagler's nurse and 2 years later, she married her former patient's husband. Alice was not rich in her own right, and following marriage, her favorite pastime seemed to be spending her husband's money. The couple had no children, and Alice, a high-strung redhead, was temperamental, but from all accounts, the marriage was a happy one. However, that changed around 1893. A friend introduced Alice to a Ouija board. For those of you who don't know what a Ouija board is, it's a talking board printed with letters and numbers that uses a sliding pointer to spell out messages allegedly from the great beyond. Although nothing more than a harmless parlor game, there are those who believe the Ouija board can do some serious spiritual and physical damage. There are warnings to play this game. For instance, you need at least 2 individuals. Unfortunately, Alice did not listen to this rule and consulted the Ouija board alone.
That was her second mistake.
What was her first one?
While playing with a Ouija board.
That is a mistake. Ouija board is a no for me. Mrs. Alice Flagler soon convinced herself she was communicating with a spirit. The spirit supposedly told her, the Tsar of Russia, which, by the way, it means charm. I had to play it on my phone 1,000 times for a translate. It's detected as Polish and it's spelled C-Z-A-R. So I hope I'm saying this right. Tsar of Russia, which is charm of Russia, was in love with her and that she was destined to become the Tsarina. Before long, she was calling herself Princess Ida Alice von Scotten-Teck, and believed there were those who wanted to poison her because of her royal heritage.
Talk about delusional.
You said it, I didn't.
But I know you were thinking it.
Maybe just a little. I hope I'm saying all these words right. Princess Ida Alice von Scotten-Teck. It seems like such a long name. I hope I did say that right. If I didn't, I'm sorry. By 1895, it seemed that Alice Flagler had become homicidal and her husband had her committed. However, in May of the following year, her doctors deemed her cured and her husband welcomed her back to their New York home on June 5th, 1896, which happened to be their 13th wedding anniversary. All went well for a few weeks. Then Alice began begging for a spirit board and attempted to bribe the servants to fetch her one. Finally, on October 10th, a neighbor's wife sneaked a new Ouija board into Flagler's home, and Alice resumed her fixation on the Tsar of Russia and conversed with unseen visitors. Shortly thereafter, she was returned to the asylum, and this time, the doctors pronounced her hopelessly insane. Mr. Flagler returned to Florida and soon became charmed by Mary Lily Keenan, a Southern belle 37 years his junior. After failing to obtain a divorce from his mentally disturbed wife in New York, Mr. Flagler persuaded the Florida legislature to change a law to allow divorce when a spouse has been declared permanently unbalanced. He and Mary Lily were married in 1901 and lived at Whitehall, their Palm Beach mansion, until Flagler's death in 1913. According to his wishes, he was buried in St. Augustine, a short distance from the Ponce de Leon Hotel. Meanwhile, Alice, in a world of delusion, languished in a New York sanitarium. But in the end, she outlived the husband who divorced her and his new young bride. Mary Lily died in 1917, just 8 months after marrying her second husband. Alice died July 10th, 1930, at the age of 82. She was buried in New York.
Wow, Alice lived a really long time.
Soon after Alice Flagler's death, rumors began circulating that the ghostly figure of a woman in white had been observed in the dimly lit corridors of the spooky old hotel in St. Augustine. Those who saw the specter described a petite, red-haired lady decked out in Victorian finery.
I guess her spirit came back to where she lived most of her life.
I think so. It was her home before she was sent to the asylum. Currently, a lot of students at Flagler College report seeing Alice Flagler. aka the White Lady. There are still occasional reports of a white, misty form in the dormitory halls, so presumably Alice is still around.
Moral of the story, don't play with the Ouija boards.
Exactly. Don't mess with a Ouija board. That's all the time we have, folks. If you have experienced any kind of activities related to ghosts, spirits, hauntings, and haunted houses, especially if you're a psychic, medium, or ghost hunter yourself, please submit your stories to our podcast and email milkshakesghosts@gmail.com.
Don't forget to subscribe to our social channels. Our TikTok handle is @milkshakesandghost. Our Instagram, Threads, Twitter, and YouTube handle is @milkshakesghost.
Or you can subscribe and hit us up on our homepage, which I will link in the show notes. If you don't already know what the show notes are, it's the description of this podcast. And that's whatever platform you're listening on.
Keep drinking milkshakes!
And keep being spooky!